SCP SL weapons. There's everything from machine guns that will help you survive a D-Day invasion, to cool cowboy revolvers, to even glowing sticks which you can use to beat up civilians. Yes, this game really has it all. However, nowadays I often see tryhards and noobs arguing, no, the Logicer is the best gun, no, 11 is better because it has 11 in its name, like, can you guys shut the fuck up? So today I'm gonna do a detailed analysis and rating of each weapon in SCP SL, based on not only how strong they are, but also how practical and versatile they are. So without any further wait, let's get right into it. First we got the Com-15, and now it should be pretty obvious that this gun is complete ass, bottom of the barrel firearm. Like, you might as well do more damage by beating up the people with the gun instead of shooting it. But then also the gun isn't meant to be strong. It's the only weapon in the whole game you can acquire without a keycard and exclusively in light containment. Realistically, its only purpose is to allow the scientists and Class D to hate crime each other at the start of the game and to piss people off by detaining and stealing their shit. But against anybody with basic armor and a weapon you will stand zero chance. Like, even if you ambush them from the back, you will need to shoot them in the head 5 times before they die. And in the meantime they literally have a whole minute to react and put a whole magazine of bullets into you before you can kill them. So yeah, obviously even though it's convenient for the start of the game, it's complete ass and is going to F tier. Next up we got the AK. It's the most common weapon within the Chaos Insurgency and basically has the highest armor penetration in the game, which when combined with its fast firing speed makes it eat through any amount of HP an enemy human can have. However, it does have multiple downsides. Number 1 obviously is the recoil, which means if you don't want to suffer an epileptic attack when firing it, you'll have to build your layout to focus on either improving the hip firing accuracy or the long range accuracy, since it's basically impossible to make a middle ground with the attachments that will ensure efficiency in both ranges. Which means even though you will be able to shot humans, you'll be completely powerless in long range if you have the attachments meant for close range and vice versa. Now I personally counter this issue by having one weapon for long range and then an AK to shred at close range. But if you don't have a second weapon, then you'll be put in a pretty annoying situation. And the second downside is the ammo. The AK uses 7.62mm bullets which don't spawn in the facility, which means your only source of ammo will be your dead teammates or the 914. And let's be real, 0.1% of people can bother to actually walk all the way from entrance zone to light containment and then to look for 914 and then to upgrade for a few minutes just so they can fire more bullets. Not to mention, in the meantime you'll be completely defenseless if you have no more bullets or other weapons. So yeah, in conclusion, if you know how to handle the AK and manage your inventory, this gun will be an absolute killing machine. But if you have no idea what you're doing, you're gonna die with it a lot, and I mean a lot. So after considering everything, I think it's worthy of a solid B tier, and if you know how to use it well, this can probably be higher. Next up we got the shotgun, yet another insurgent weapon. Now I remember when they first added this weapon it was a 50-50 between doing 0 damage or one-shotting you across the whole map. But luckily they fixed all of the mechanics and even gave it a special 2x attachment. Now this gun is probably one of the most unique in the game because, well, it's a fucking shotgun. But honestly, without the 2x attachment this weapon can go straight to the trash pit. To do any damage you have to hit both of the 2 rapid shots, which you very likely won't, and by the time you fire again while spraying you don't miss, you'll very likely be dead. And trust me, hitting your shots is very hard when the target is moving around like a nuthead in a disco club. However, with the 2x attachment everything changes. It becomes the only weapon in the game capable of shutting down any human in one shot. Or, well, that is if you ignore the particle disruptor and jailbird. But there's absolutely no room for mistake. If you miss once or even twice, there's a 0% chance that the enemy will fail to kill you, unless they are really retarded or you're somehow managing to juke their shots. This attachment is best used when in proximity of doors, since it's extremely hard to miss a person going through it, especially if they have no idea you're there. And obviously the ammo for this gun is rare, but there's no way you'll be able to run out of ammo unless you're fighting an SCP or the voices in your head. But the biggest weakness of the shotgun is the long-range encounters, which you can actually avoid if you're playing smart, but a thing you can't avoid is 4 MTF kamikaze rushing you. Even if you perfectly hit a shot or 2, there's no way you can cock the shotgun and fire fast enough again before you get that person obliterated. So yeah, this gun is literally a hit or miss. I really don't know where to put this thing. It's good, but realistically you're way better off with an unreliable weapon that's also really deadly, instead of praying for an 1 in a 10 scenario where you perfectly hit your shots. So that's why I guess I'll put it in C tier. Okay, enough yapping about the Chaos Insurgency, let's talk about the FSP-9. Now this gun is literally designed for the sole purpose of gunning down Class D, like you can't tell me it serves any other purpose than that. Unless like 20 guards spawn, then you can use it to harass the SCPs early on. It's light and fast firing, ideal for running around and shooting. However, obviously against armored targets this thing will be complete task. You'll need to shoot 1/3 of your magazine into someone without missing, and god forbid they have heavy armor as your bullets will merely tickle them. The only way you can kill armored targets with this gun is if they're handicapped or if you ambush them. Or you can also have it as a backup quick draw weapon to finish off weak targets, where it actually does really well, but there's obviously better alternatives. So in conclusion, it's S tier for gunning down unarmed civilians as it's light, fast firing, and you can get extra ammunition anywhere. But if chaos spawn, you're better off shooting yourself instead of them, so that's why I'll give it a C tier, but only because it's a good quick draw weapon. Otherwise, if you're gonna use it for anything else, it's on D tier. You think you could just take 99 away from me? It's time to settle this. I told you science always wins. Yeah, ignore what just happened, I just always wanted to make an Valves movie. Anyways, the revolver, yet another insurgent weapon and an even more hit or miss weapon than the shotgun. Now, let's be real, we all know that the 90% of scenarios in which you will use a revolver will go like this. Yeah, unless you're the 0.1% of the player base that has got your aim and can hit your revolver or flick shots without aiming, you're really likely gonna be missing everything and just dying. That is, if you're talking about short to medium range. The purpose of this revolver is to make up for the long range downside of the shotgun, since Chaos Marauders spawn with both the shotgun and revolver, and honestly, even if you have the worst aim in the world, if you put a scope on this thing, it's gonna be really hard to miss, especially inside a facility where you can predict exactly where your enemies will come from. So yeah, as I said, this weapon purely depends on your skill. Stats-wise, this weapon has the highest damage and penetration in the whole game, which theoretically should make it an S tier, even if you're facing multiple enemies. However, at surprise close range encounters it will be completely useless and generally useless if you can't aim, so I'll give it a B tier, and depending on your skill this can either be an S++ or an F-. Next up we got the E11. Now I won't even hide it, this weapon is my absolute favorite and I love it so much I would rather have one E11 instead of 10 jailbirds. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who feels this way. The E11 is the standard weapon for MTF surgeons and can also be found in one of the armors in heavy containments. Now what does make this gun so good? Well, it's the king of balance and reliability. It's good at both long and short range. You can modify it so it's more light and suited for running and gunning, or you can also turn it into a mini machine gun. This weapon literally has it all, and even though it doesn't have the strongest damage and penetration in the game, they're more than enough to take care of both armored and unarmored targets with ease. Its ammo, even though less common than the 9mm, is still extremely easy to find within the facility. I personally always love using this weapon as a silent sniper, since somehow 90% of the player base are NPCs who don't see anything unusual when their teammates just start dropping one by one. Or I just slap a muzzle booster on it alongside a drum mag and make every SCP's existence miserable. Anyways, even though this one is my personal favorite and soulmates, the truth is there is weapons that outmatch it, and by a lot. So that's why I'll give it an A tier instead of S tier. Next up we got the Com-45. Now you'll very rarely encounter this weapon, but when you do, you better pray that you're not on the enemy team. I have no idea how this weapon came to existence, probably by some drunk scientist taping together 3 Com-15s and showing them into 914, but I guess we'll never know. Anyways, if you learn to control the recoil of this beast, not only can you shred any human in your path in mere seconds, you can also completely eat away an SCP's HP extremely fast, which most of the times leads to the SCPs running away from you once they realize you have it. However, this gun also has 2 big downsides. Besides the ridiculous recoil, you'll also need to reload for an extremely long time, which means if you miss you give your opponent a massive window to whoop your ass, and the other downside is the ammo usage. You'll need a constant supply of ammo for this thing, since with only 5 shots you'll be using 209mm bullets, and for reference with the combat armor you can only carry 170 bullets. But yeah, overall a really ridiculous weapon. However, its downsides are extremely punishing, which is what's stopping it from going into S tier. Next up we got the Crossback. Now this weapon is literally the most basic but reliable weapon in the game. It basically has 0 recoil, it's extremely light, does solid damage, and its ammo can be found absolutely anywhere. It's basically the big brother of the FSP-9. It's great for gunning down unarmored targets and can be really good as a quick draw backup weapon. However, even though it's very much capable of taking out the SCPs and armored humans, its damage and penetration just can't compete whatsoever with other weapons on this list. So that's why even though it's an absolutely solid choice, it can get much higher than a B tier. Next up we got the Logister. No, not that ancient abomination, I'm talking about this Logister. An absolute beauty of weaponry and the final weapon of the Chaos Insurgency. Now I'm pretty sure it's obvious why this weapon is superior to others. I mean, it's a literal fucking machine gun. It's got one of the best penetration and damage in the game, and even though its fire rate is slightly slower than in some other weapons, it's still above the average fire rate, and when combined with its damage, it's an absolute killing machine. You can single-handedly hold on elevators with this thing or even hallways, because nobody who walks into your line of fire will survive for longer than a second or two. And this weapon makes the SCPs piss and shit themselves in fear. Sure, its heaviness is a major flaw when fighting SCPs, but even with all of that weight, by the time they reach you, you'll eat half of their HP. The recoil on it, even though not beginner friendly, can easily be handled with the right attachments. And if you're a psychopath, you can also turn this thing into a sniper machine gun, though I personally prefer using it for close range run and gunning with a laser sight. However, make sure to use its ammo wisely, because trust me, you'll use it up really fast, so it should be obvious that this guy is going to S tier, since if you know how to use it and can get yourself hands on enough ammo, you can very easily solo wipe out the whole facility. Next up we got the A7. Now this is the first weapon in the game that's both rare and unique, but not OP, and is instead absolute ass. This gun is literally the AK-47, but if you took everything good out of it, which is probably why it's called the A7 and not the AK-47. It has a solid fire rate but an absolutely brain damaging recoil combined with unblinding muzzle flash. However, the worst part is that you can't modify the weapon to fix its downsides. Now the whole gimmick of this gun is that it applies the burnt effect to targets near it, which increases their damage received by 25%, which is really insignificant and trust me, won't make a difference whatsoever. whatsoever, especially because most fights don't happen at blank range anyways. So yeah, this thing is just impractical as hell and you probably shouldn't use it if you want to win. However, I do have massive respect for you if you do use it, because like you're firing from a gun that's literally melting apart as you use it. Now if that isn't infinite aura, then I don't know what is. Anyways, this gun can get an extremely generous C tier. Hold on, before I go on to the next weapon, make sure to hit this button right here to stay up to date with the latest epic SCP content and strategies. Oh, and also because you'll end up like this guy if you don't. Anyways, and now for a less interesting weapon, we got the Com-18. Now I would say this is a big brother of the Com-15, but the Com-15 is extremely handicapped compared to this gun, so it really wouldn't make sense if I said that. You can find this pistol in plenty of armories in the facility, and even though it's got a far rate of one pistol, it ain't that bad. Its penetration and damage are pretty solid, though if put into a 1v1 against a person with an automatic weapon, you'll get absolutely obliterated. But honestly, against weaker weapons like the FSP-9 or maybe even the Crossrack, you actually have a chance, especially if you ambush people with it. But the cool thing about this pistol is that unlike any other gun in the game, you can aim down sights while full on sprinting, which means that you can become a literal John Wick with this thing if you know how to use it. So in conclusion, it's not necessarily a bad gun. It can get the job done, but against bigger amounts of enemies or enemies with automatic weapons, you won't stand a chance. So that's why I'll give it a solid C tier. And the last but not least, we got the FRMG. Now when this weapon was first released, it was absolutely broken, like straight up the most OP thing to ever hit the game. You could destroy spawn waves or melt SCPs with zero consequences, and I mean, you can still kind of do that, but it's just not as easy. The FRMG is an quote-unquote light machine gun and can only be obtained by spawning as an MTF captain or opening the armory in 079's containment. Unlike the Logisser, this gun has a much smaller penetration and damage even with its AP mag. However, it shoots basically twice as fast, which makes up for it. This gun is basically if you took an E11 and fed it max and then gave it a massive set of balls. Its recoil isn't that bad. You can adjust the attachments to make it more long or short range suited, or you can also try to achieve a middle ground with a higher recoil, but if you learn how to control it, it won't be much of a problem. Just like the Logisser is great for holding down corridors or elevators when there's a bunch of enemies coming through them, since by the time they can react, they'll already have 20 bullets in their head. And if you can use your environment to keep your distance with the SCPs, you can literally make their HP disappear in seconds. But the biggest advantage I'd say it has compared to the Logisser is that it uses 5mm ammo, which means you don't have to worry about ever running out of them and can just shower whatever you want in bullets. So it should be obvious that this thing is going in S tier, since it's really easy to work around its downside and its fire rate is just ridiculous. Anyways, is there something important I didn't mention, and do you agree or disagree with my yappings? Make sure to let me know in the comments. Also make sure to violate this button right here because it shines when you do so, and it also ensures you'll be up to date with the latest SCP SL strategies and other epic SCP content. Anyways, have a great day and I'll see you next time.